Welcome, welcome, welcome. I know it's been a minute since I've done a podcast or live, but life has been lifing, so I am back. I've come up with a lot of material to start back with these conversations because they need to be had. They need to be had very much so. And it has been a lot of things that have come up in this community that needs to be addressed, and we just have to make some action. So let me back up. It's Mia with Sickle Cell Awareness 365, and I have Gina Glass with us today from DreamSickle Kids Foundation in Nevada. So I'm going to let Gina introduce herself. Nobody can do that better than her. So tell us about yourself, Gina.
Hi, everyone. I am Gina Glass, the founder and executive director of DreamSickle Kids Foundation, which is the first sickle cell disease organization here in the state of Nevada. We started out in 2018 here in Nevada. I have a 7, soon to be 8-year-old sickle cell warrior, Gia, which brought me on this path to sickle cell advocacy. We provide direct support to the patients and families in Nevada and sometimes in other states that are impacted by sickle cell. And we've taken up interest in also advocating on a legislative level for the sickle cell disease community in an effort to reach long-term changes that the patient community will benefit from for years to come. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, awesome. I love that. So you said you have a 2-year-old and a 19, I'm sorry, not a 2-year-old, but a soon to be 8-year-old and a 19-year-old, was it?
She's about to be 21.
Oh, I'm behind. So yeah, which one of them has sickle cell?
So the Gia, who is 7 and will be 8 next month, she has sickle cell disease. Her
Right.
big sister Raven does not have sickle cell disease or sickle cell trait.
Good. I was gonna ask that. Did you know you had the trait when Gia came along?
Well, at one point in my life, I knew, but I really didn't know what the purpose of it was or what was gonna, what could happen with it. And then over the years, with just having one child, I forgot, and she was 13 before her little sister was born, and I was told when she was around 5 or 6, I couldn't have any more children. So it wasn't something that I was thinking about. I literally forgot that I had sickle cell trait until I did some testing during pregnancy, which reminded me. But we did know that Gia's father carried the sickle cell trait.
Okay. Okay. I'm glad you knew because that at least, even though you really don't know what to expect, having a child with sickle cell disease, just having that knowledge kind of prepares you, at least to learn more about the disease, if nothing else. So I'm glad you were aware of that, because a lot of us didn't know till, like for me, I was about 6 months when my mother found out that I had sickle cell. So thankfully, it wasn't too strenuous in the beginning for her to be alarmed. It didn't come till I was almost a year old. So you talked about you're the first sickle cell organization in Nevada. How did that come about? I think that's awesome.
So we moved here from California, and we actually came up with the name Dreamsickle in California. But California has a lot of organizations and a lot of resources for people with sickle cell disease and their families. So we just kind of said, "Oh, that's a cute name, but we will put it on the back burner and maybe figure out something else to do with it." But California definitely didn't need any more sickle cell organizations. Then we moved to Nevada, and for the first year or so, because Gia didn't have complications, she would just go for like a 6-month checkup. We would drive to California for her checkups, and then once she was about a year and a half, she had her first serious crises not a crisis, she had pneumonia. And that at that time, navigating the healthcare system, I came to see that there was a lack of education in the healthcare system and a lack of awareness in the state of Nevada as it pertained to sickle cell. And I began researching to find a sickle cell organization or support group geared towards sickle cell, and I found nothing. And then another series of events led me to go ahead and create DreamSickle Kids.
I love it. I promise I love y'all mama bears who are driven between you and my pillar with my three sicklers and Nakia Vaughn. Like I just it's so many more, but I just really love to see it. Um and that same passion from a patient's perspective is what gets me to do, the things that I do. So I love sharing this space with you guys. And just I kind of see my mom and all of you because even though her story is a bit different, that drive is just still there. So I love to see it.
And to be completely real, I have a niece who she lives in California. She has sickle cell disease. Gia has type SS. My niece has SC. And I was aware of her having sickle cell, but I still didn't really look further into it. She's my great niece, so my niece's daughter. But I still, my dad is her grandpa, so we're still, close, immediate family. He's the reason we both have sickle cell traits. So, but I didn't really get into it, or oh, she has sickle cell, she gets sick, and things like that. But it wasn't until like the average person, is not until something hits home that you really start looking into it and taking a interest and taking up, the cause, the crusade to actually do something about it. So that's pretty much how it went for me.
That's true. I see it within my family. If they're not in the house with me, most of them don't really understand. You have the ones that do know, the details that go on and understand to some level, but most of them don't. They'll call and check on me. You good? Cuz you good? You
Yeah,
straight? I'm fine, but that's the extent of it. So yeah, until it really hits you, until it's in your house, literally, you really have no idea, to be honest.
no,
So
I
so
not
tell you answered what I was going to ask you next. What type of sickle cell Gia has? You said SS,
a.
and you
Mhm.
said she didn't get pneumonia until like a year and a half. What age was she when she had her first crisis?
So she got pneumonia at a year and a half, but she didn't have her first pain crises, which at all, or and then which sent us to the hospital until she was 3 years old.
Okay. So she didn't have any symptoms when she was born, like hand and feet syndrome or fever or jaundice.
Maybe once she might have had the hand and feet. I think maybe once, I really don't remember, but I believe so. And I believe one time, once or twice, she was crying incessantly at, like, 3, 4, 5 months, and we couldn't figure out what was making her cry because everything was good. But she didn't really have a lot of fevers as a baby. She really didn't start having, any sort of signs of sickle cell disease until about a year and a half.
Okay, I see. So I hate that even in pediatric care, they experience just a tiny portion of what we deal with in adult care, but that's where mama bears like you come in. I know when I was younger, mom, I can already imagine how you are in the hospital when stuff needs to be done just based off my mom. So tell us one of the experiences where you were not getting the treatment that Gia deserved and needed, and something had to move, something had to shake. Because we deal with this a lot and we complain on Facebook, we complain to our friends, but I don't think anything really happens until we take it higher up to some people who can really make change. So
Right.
what's about that experience?
So I will say, I guess for the most, I'll have to be honest, Gia, since we've been here, as far as her care with sickle cell disease, it's been, pretty good. We haven't had any issues where I had to have, pushback with the hematologist, the physicians that see her. They pretty much have been, they treated her. They seem, at least having the minimal knowledge. And then when I talk with the things that I know and understand, there's never really a problem. There were only two situations, and the first one really is what one of the things that led me to realize how important it is to advocate, not just on a local level, talking to your doctors and such like that, but actually on a legislative level. So the first time Gia got pneumonia, we live in Las Vegas, and we live in an area which is, they consider it like Summerlin, well, not Summerlin, like Henderson. A lot of people are like, oh, you're right next door to California, because I guess it's so far from, I guess, real Las Vegas. However, to be honest, it's not a very what you would consider an urban type of neighborhood. So we had a nice, beautiful hospital that was around the corner from our house. So when she got pneumonia, it was in September, and I was actually out of town for my birthday. So she was home with dad, and he took her to the hospital. But I kind of had, trained him on what to do. Make sure when you get there, you tell them she has sickle cell, she has a fever, and from there they should, know what they need to do for her. So he took her to the hospital, and they pretty much just, relegated it to, she just has a fever, and maybe she has an infection. So we'll give her Tylenol for the fever, and we'll give her a antibiotic shot just in case she has an infection. And sent her on her way back home. Well, 2 days later, when I got back, she was still very lethargic. She had a fever still. She wouldn't go to sleep. She wouldn't lay flat to go to sleep. So one night because she wouldn't lay flat on her back, she was laying on my back, and I heard the struggle she was having with breathing. So I immediately jumped up and literally Googled a hospital in, an urban area. I say urban trying to be PC, but literally an area where there's probably more Black and brown people, and hospitals where they are familiar with treating Black and brown people, and those Black and brown people some of them probably had sickle cell, and they've treated them. So found a hospital. It was about 40 minutes away from where we live. We drove to that hospital. As soon as we got there, I told them she had sickle cell. I told them what her symptoms were. They immediately sprang into action. They did the x-ray. They took the cultures, and within like 15-20 minutes, they got the x-ray back, and they said that both of her lungs were filled with pneumonia, and they were admitting her into the ICU. And she was there for 3 or 4 days. We were in the ICU because of that, and which was really, really scary. So after she was released, then the mom, the activist or whatever kicks in, and I'm like, well, I don't understand why we have this nice, beautiful hospital around the corner, and we had to come 40 minutes away to get the proper service. And if it wasn't for me and my research, most people, when you go to the doctor and they tell you something, you tend to accept their recommendations and whatever they say and go about your business. So had I been the parent that said, well, they said it wasn't anything but maybe pneumonia and maybe a little infection, I'm just going to sit here, then my daughter could have, died from all of the fluid that was building up in her lungs from the pneumonia. So I got upset, and I was like, well, this hospital is too new, and I'm sure it costs a lot of money for them to have this hospital, and I'm sure they get praised for many other things, but it makes no sense for them to not even know the bare minimum. She has a fever, you should know to do an x-ray on a sickle cell patient when they have a fever. You should know to, check their blood when they come in or whatever. So I began, writing letters to them, calling, sending them messages on social media, email and everything. They never answer me. They never answer me. This went on for over a year. So, other things come up in life. So it kind of, got pushed to the back burner. And one day I was on Facebook, and there was an advertisement that came up for our hospital that's around the corner from us. And they were, advertising their great new state-of-the-art children's
Mhm.
hospital that they had in their hospital.
Mhm.
Okay, that's great. However, in the advertisement, the child that they had was a little black girl. So now I'm mad all over again. So
Yeah.
now I'm emailing and messaging them like, you got this little black girl advertising your children's wing, and I brought a little black girl to you. And if I hadn't done what I needed to do as a parent and advocate, my child could have died. And
Right.
still they would not respond to me. And I'm like, well, there's somebody that I should be able to talk to that's gonna listen to me, and I want to talk to the people who work at this hospital.
Yeah.
So I just because a few months prior to that, I had at a random barbecue, for like a community barbecue that some local politicians had thrown, I met a lady who said that she was working on an actual bill for sickle cell. And so at that point, we kind of became besties. So I was just harassing her about, oh, it needs this, talk to this person, talk to that person. Um,
Mhm.
I'm sure I got on her nerves.
That's okay.
But
You have to do.
because of that connection, and I was like, okay, I'm talking to her, and she's trying to move and trying to work this bill. There's got to be somebody over here who can talk to this, another legislator in my neighborhood who can talk to this hospital. So I looked up my local legislator there's like websites you can go to find your legislator or whatever. You put in your zip code, your city, and they'll tell you your legislator. And sometimes it goes by zip codes or certain parts of the area, and you'll be able to get your specific legislator. So I put in my zip code, I found the legislator, then I double checked. So I put in the zip code of the hospital to see if that legislator was also in the district of that hospital, and she was. So at that point, I began calling her, leaving messages, and emailing her. She had about 3 emails, so I emailed all of them. And maybe about a week or two later, she responded to my email, and she said, I'm sorry to hear your experience. I would love to talk to you and hear
Mhm.
more about it and see what I can do. So we met at a coffee shop, and we had a conversation. And from that point, she went back and she started shooting off emails. And shortly after that, then the hospital's I don't know, patient affairs person or somebody, I forget what her official title is. But she reached out to me, and we scheduled a meeting for me to go to the hospital to meet with her and to meet with the chief medical officer. And so I took Gia with me to that meeting. So we were in the meeting, and I told them what happened. And I was talking to the patient affairs person and the hospital's chief medical officer, who happened to be African. So as we're having the conversation discussing the fact that Gia has sickle cell, he says that he has a son at the time who was about 20, who was in college in Georgia, and he has sickle cell. I said, so if you probably wouldn't want to bring your son to this hospital because they
Right.
don't know what to do with somebody with sickle cell. I was like,
Right.
and his colleague didn't even know that his son has sickle cell, which is not surprising. A lot of people don't just volunteer that information.
Mhm.
But from there, we connected, being parents of children with sickle cell.
Yeah.
And I asked him, I said, well, I live 5 minutes away from here. How long is it going to take you to get your people, your physicians, to a place where I can bring my daughter back to this hospital if we have
Mhm.
an emergency, rather than having to go 40 minutes away to another hospital?
Right.
And he said, I'm gonna promise you that within like 6 months or so, you'll be able to bring your daughter back to this hospital. I'm gonna make sure that my ER physicians know what to do if they're presented with a sickle cell patient. They of course, they're not going to be experts that fast, but they will at least know the basics of what to do when a sickle cell patient presents in the ER.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, so a little time went, and we are working on this sickle cell bill, drafting the language for the sickle cell bill. And when there are bills introduced, usually in order to garner support, you want to hear from the community as to whether they support the bill or whether they oppose the bill, and you want to hear explanations why. So what you do is you can testify. So you go and you tell the legislators that are hearing the bill, that can support the bill, why this bill is important for you. So we were to that process, and I reached back out to that hospital and I said, hey, there's a sickle cell bill that's going to be introduced, and we need your support. Would your hospital consider writing a letter of support for the sickle cell bill? And the chief medical officer and the patient affairs, she said she would get the hospital to write the letter of support. And the chief medical officer said, I'm not just going to sign the letter of support, I'm going to come and testify for the bill. Good. So I came and testified for the bill, and a lot of other sickle cell patients and advocates and other hospital healthcare providers also testified for the bill. And the bill passed that in June of 2019, our sickle cell bill was passed.
That was awesome. And what did this bill say specifically?
So the bill specifically spoke to, because of course we hadn't had a lot of therapies for sickle cell. And when therapies are introduced, they're quite expensive. So the bill requires that Medicaid cover any new FDA approved medication for sickle cell. They cover it for patients that are on Medicaid. Good. And also because as patients, that sometimes there's, we take supplements, the patients take supplements, your vitamin D, your folic acid, things like that, iron. So, and those costs add up. If you really buy supplements, those costs add up. So the bill requires that any supplement that the provider prescribes for the patient also has to be covered by Medicaid. Supplements can go, 50 to 100 a month if you're buying supplements. So even on Medicaid, to have to come up with 50 to 100 a month. And then there was also, since hydroxyurea was the only drug at that time, so here in Nevada, I don't know if it was everywhere else, but here in Nevada, when it comes to Medicaid, the hydroxyurea was only available in the pill form. So regardless, and in like 2015, it began to be recommended for children like 6 months to a year. So if you were taking hydroxyurea and you had small children that were taking hydroxyurea, you literally had to, be your own pharmacist and open it up, shake it in their food, shake it in their drink, and hope you're giving the most accurate dose for it to actually be effective. So me personally, I decided against giving Gia hydroxyurea because I'm not a medical professional, I'm not a pharmacist, and I didn't feel comfortable just playing the guessing game. And the pharmacists, when they package that medication, they have hoods and gloves and whatever when they're packaging it. So if they have to wear that when they're handling this medication, why are you just giving me this medication to touch and manipulate with my bare hands? So I didn't feel comfortable, and for me, I didn't feel like that was safe for me to be doing. So the bill also required that the hydroxyurea be covered for compounding, which is to make it liquid under the Medicaid, because prior it could be $80 to $100 if you wanted to have the hydroxyurea put in liquid form.
Wow.
So the bill now requires that for Medicaid, if they prescribe it for a child or someone who has an issue with swallowing, they have to compound that medicine, and it has to be covered under the Medicaid insurance. The third most important part of the bill was that we established a sickle cell disease registry to get a accurate count of how many people in the state of Nevada actually have sickle cell. The last numbers that were taken here in Nevada was 2007, and it was estimated at maybe a little bit under 500 people with sickle cell. But the one clinic here since about 2014. They treat all rare complex illnesses, pediatric illnesses, which includes sickle cell, and they see about 300 children. So there's no way you see 300 children, but there's only 400 people
Right,
in the
right, right,
state with
right.
sickle cell disease per the CDC's last numbers that they had. So we got a sickle cell disease registry um,
Good.
implemented that's managed through the state. And we also, that same year that the sickle cell bill passed, there was a rare disease advisory council passed through legislation as well. So I was fortunate enough to kind of be able to help handpick some of the people that are on the advisory council. And of course, because it was the childhood cancer community that advocated for the advisory council. So hey G, okay, say hi since you're here.
Hey Tia, how are you?
Good.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
When I'm on the Zoom. So I was able to help pick some of the people that were referred to apply for the advisory council. And so my thing was making sure that it was diverse and making sure that the sickle cell voice was heard on there. So we have our main sickle cell hematologist is a part of the advisory board. We have a nurse who has a child with sickle cell disease. She's a part of the advisory board. We have a sickle cell patient that's a part of the advisory board. And the hospital, I forget what the official name is, but she basically founded the hospital where the rare and complex pediatric children are treated. She's a part of the advisory board. She's actually the chair of the advisory board. And then I was subsequently voted the vice chair of the advisory board. So we're making sure the sickle cell voice is heard, and as part of the rare disease community, kind of, hey, we're a part of your community as well. So now we have a voice on an advisory council that was enacted by the governor, and that kind of establishes and lends credibility to the things that we're saying and doing and asking for in the name of sickle cell and rare disease here in Nevada.
I absolutely love that. You dropped a lot of bombs on just how to get the ball rolling. And I think people may be hesitant to write or contact their local hospital CEO, their local Congress people. They're actually there. They work for us.
That's what I
So
was gonna say. They work for us. Their job is to listen to us, to
yes,
talk to us, to meet with us, to go and speak on our behalf to
yes.
those local and federal government officials so that we can have change.
I love that we in Atlanta do an advocacy day and it
Right.
grows. I've been doing it for I don't know how long now, but it has grown so much to like this year. The room was just overflowing with
Yes,
people and it
oh,
was
yeah.
very overwhelming. It was a very feeling moment. Me and my mom was just so full when we left just to see the support, just to see the lobbyists come out, the different Congress women and congressmen come out and lend their support. Hey, we're going to ask for this much money and this is what we're going to do with it. The hematologists need to get paid more for seeing sickle cell patients, and that thing was just absolutely amazing. And I know they do have the rare disease in DC. I hate that I missed it this year.
That was so
I
fun.
haven't been, I'm sure it was.
It
I
was so
haven't been in years, probably since
saw
2015.
Cory Booker and got a picture with
Yeah.
him.
So yeah, I love going to stuff like that, but I already made it in my mind I'm coming next year. So but yeah, I love stuff like that. And we can actually go and talk to our people that really, like you said, they work for us. They need to
Right.
listen to us. They do have some of them do have that open door policy where we can. I have my representative's cell phone number in my phone. I have her email. And
Yes. Yes.
her when I see her at the Capitol Day or any other event, it's like Nettie and Seeley. You know what I'm saying? So, but you have to have that open communication, and you have to speak up. A closed mouth does not get fed. And in this space, this underserved space that we're in, I think a lot of the reasons I go so hard is because I want better for myself.
Right.
And I have my hands in so many different things because I see the change that needs to happen. And as much as I've been doing it, I've seen change happen as well. So, and that's encouraging in itself to keep
Right.
going. Like, what else is next? What we need to do?
Right.
There's always work to do in this
Right.
community.
Absolutely. And I also want to mention when it comes to engaging with your politicians to be intentional. There's a lot of politicians, there's a lot of legislators, but they all have different focuses. So you don't want to go to the legislator that focuses on like small businesses or real estate or whatever and talk to them about sickle cell. That's not their ministry. That's not their lane. That's not their focus. You want to talk to the legislators that, you know, healthcare is a part of their initiatives, education is a part of their initiatives, um, family, housing, food, uh, things like that that align with what we as the sickle cell community want. You don't want to waste your time or their time talking to a legislator who really cannot do anything for you, who really is not going to make time or a priority to, you know, co-sponsor sickle cell bills or write a letter for you. There are people that you can talk to that will co-sponsor and support bills that pertain to health or sickle cell specifically. They will write you letters of support. You just have to be intentional about it. So when you find those legislators that are in your district, just go put their name in and go to their website. It'll tell you exactly what they're about. So you already know, like, okay, they focus on the street signs and the street repairs. So that's not somebody that I need to try to take a meeting with to have a conversation about sickle cell and health disparities and things like that.
Mhm.
So it's important to make sure that you're intentional and to make sure that you are talking to the right people, because sometimes you'll think, oh, it's legislative, let's just talk to them all, but that's
Right.
not really effective in actually advocating legislatively for sickle cell, rare disease, and health issues. But also, I wanted to mention the don't forget everybody to register for the SCD policy forum
I'm
from
glad.
March 1st to 22nd. That is a great way to get more information about policy and about legislating in the legislative advocacy in the sickle cell community. I think I'm speaking on a panel for that also. So I do want to mention that if you miss Rare Disease Day, there is still time to do, you know, to get some legislative work done for sickle cell, even with Rare Disease Week, which was advocating for all rare diseases. Sickle cell just being one of the many thousands. But in our when we went and spoke with the representatives for Rare Disease Day to advocate for, you know, bills and things that were on the table for that benefit the entire rare disease community, we still also slid in and included sickle cell specific legislation because it's a rare disease.
Exactly. Exactly.
We
You know what it
still
is?
included that, and we were able to, you know, advocate for all of the legislative policy work that's going on for rare disease, and then specifically for legislative issues that were on the table for sickle cell disease as well. So
Awesome.
get in where you fit in.
Exactly. It's plenty of opportunity to join in any way. I did put the sickcells.org website in there in the chat for any of those interested. I'm glad you brought that up. The SCD policy forum for March 21st and the 22nd, hosted by both. I think it's a collaborative event with Sickle Cell Community Consortium, and SCDAA. So this is a chance to at least log on, and even if you just don't have an understanding right now, it's okay. We're gonna teach you, you're gonna learn. But you have to start somewhere. Start with sharing your story, because a lot of them want to hear your story.
Yeah,
So
so I'm going to put a few links in here about like how to find your legislator. Um,
good.
and then I'm going to put I think I have a link on here. I have a link about like testifying for a bill. So seeing what bills have been introduced.
Okay,
Um,
good.
you can check there's a site that you can go on to see pretty much all the bills, and you can pick your state to see what's going on in your state. And there's a lot of patient advocacy groups. Like here in Nevada, we don't have like a sickle cell specific advocacy day, but other advocacy organizations. There's like a Children's Alliance. They have an advocacy day. There's the Chronic Care Collaborative here. They do an advocacy day. Sickle cell is chronic, so we can just go team up with them and go to their advocacy days. We don't necessarily. I mean, we have a large population. I mean, anything, if there's one, to me, that's large. But about 1,000 of us here. So we don't, and sickle cell, advocacy organizations, community-based organizations is new here. So we don't have a lot of resources and funding to have just a whole day to advocate for sickle cell. We can't, though we would love to, we can't do that. So we'll hop on with, Rare Disease Week with the rare disease organizations or organizations here in Nevada that, go to Carson City and advocate. We just go with them and we just talk about sickle cell.
Good. That's how you work it, because sickle cell can really fit in any space. I thought about doing walks before, like the kidney walk. Sickle cell affects the kidneys, the heart walk, the lung walk. It's so many other programs we can and avenues to go to advocate for sickle cell disease and spread awareness and education.
Right. So public health issues. So you get with your, public health advocates and things like that. You can as organizations and advocates team up with college students. We had one intern last year and we have two this year who are public health students that are about to graduate. So we're going to be using them to help us, because we're finally getting to a point where we're going to start working to create our sickle cell data registry. It's been 3 years in the making. We're through the red tape, and now it's time for us to put together a platform for it. So we're going to use those public health students, because we don't have large funding resources and support to be able to do those things. But that's also why legislation is important, because even not just federal, but even your local legislators, they have like annually or whatever, they have a budget of appropriations that are for projects specific to their state that you as an organization can present them with a proposal and argue why it's beneficial and how it will help the community and the constituents, and they can give you money for that. So that's another reason that you want to engage your legislative officials. Make sure they know who you are, because them knowing you and knowing your work, make sure even just every time you do something, send them an email. Maybe they'll look at it, maybe they won't, but they'll have it. And then when you're ready, say, hey, I want to meet with you. Oh, for the past 6 months, I've been sending you what we've been doing, and now we're looking for your support on this. We're trying to go out for this state grant or this federal grant. And it helps like that. It's important to know your legislators. So
it really is. And
that's your name come across a grant and be like, oh, I remember that. I see them. They go on Facebook. Yeah, go ahead and get that to
them. Right. And that's important on so many levels to know your legislator, not just with sickle cell and health, but of course
for everything. Everything. You in school. My daughter is in school. She is in school. She does homebound school, but there are a lot of issues in the schools. Even though she's not there right now, eventually the goal is for her to go back to a traditional school setting. So I'm concerned with things that are happening in the school system. So those organizations that focus on education, I'm a part of some of those organizations, because those are things that's important to me as well. So though of course we're going to have tunnel vision for sickle cell, it, like you said, it expands to so many different arenas that wherever, if you in education, that's something that's important for sickle cell too, because with sickle cell, sometimes they're delayed with their development and learning, and they need extra assistance in school or whatever, IEP 504. So you need to be a part of the educational communities as well.
You are absolutely right. So at some point, and I know you have some time before this happens, but at some point, Gia is going to transition into adult care. and that's what, about 10, not 10, 11 years from now. So I know you will have a lot more under your belt by then. But are you already thinking of that, even though it's so far off? And what do you think about that whole transition?
I'm definitely thinking about it. And I've definitely already started preparing her. I mean, Gia has known that she has had sickle cell since she can talk. She used to
Good.
introduce herself as, "Hi, I'm Gia, and I have sickle cell," because I wanted her to know that she had this, because I've met and seen so many people who are afraid or shy to talk about the fact that
Mhm.
they have this condition. But I wanted her to be vocal, so she will tell you if you sneeze too many times. She's gonna tell you, you got to go, because I'm gonna get sick and have to go to the hospital because I have sickle
Exactly.
cell. Like, she advocates for herself. When we go to the doctor, if they poke her twice and still didn't get it, if she don't want to be poked anymore, she tells them, "I don't want you to poke me anymore." If
Good.
she remembers the person who poked her and got it, go get that lady to stick me, because you can't stick me anymore. And
Good.
I allow her to do that,
Yeah.
because eventually she's gonna have to do it, even though of course I plan to be there forever.
Right.
But
Right.
it might come a time when she has to go to the hospital or something and I'm not there. I want her to feel comfortable talking to these doctors, because
Mhm.
it's her body. and,
Exactly.
and that's something that she needs to be aware of. And so far we've been fortunate and blessed to not have any real issues with like the medical bias and mistreatment in the hospital. But she's still young, so usually that doesn't happen. There was one time when I had to kind of turn into the mama bear, because this nurse, Gia, had a real bad crisis, and she, you know, I don't normally give her a lot of medication because we're able to manage it for the most with some Motrin and Tylenol. But she was in the hospital and she was, getting the cocktails, your Toradol, your diluted and things like that. So she would keep saying, "I want the medicine that makes me go to sleep," because that's what she equated the medicine to. And the nurse was trying to like explain to her what pain, like, this is pain medicine. You don't need that. It's not medicine to make you go to sleep. Well, I could talk to her about that, or her hematologist can better explain it. But right now she's in pain, and when she go to sleep, she's not in pain. She's 7 years old. That's what she knows. Now, if she was 12 or 13 and just saying, "I want the medicine to make me go to sleep," yes, we need to have a conversation and explain what this medication is. But right now we're not going to do that. And then she knows mom is, I'm the authoritarian, so when I'm around, she, sometimes will hold it in more and try to take it. So
Yeah.
she might not call for that medicine as much as if dad's there, because dad, he don't want to hear nothing. So he's like, what you need, can you come give it to her? So she knows that he's going to do that. So she might ask the nurse for the medicine a few more times than she normally would with me. And the nurse was saying, "Oh, well, I don't know if you really need it, because when mom's here, you don't do that. But when dad's here, you do that." And I had to tell her, "Look, if she says she's in pain
Yeah.
and she can get medicine, you need to give it to her. If
Cool.
she's
Yeah.
manipulating us, we'll deal with that on our front. But you just give her the medication. If she asks for it, give her the medication."
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
to me, I feel like the way that she was doing it was like she was like a teenager or adult. Those are,
Yeah.
things you might, as a nurse, want to say to a teenager or adult who probably really knows what's going on, and maybe
Mhm.
they might be manipulating. But I don't think that. But that just speaks to how people look at children, especially Black and brown children,
Yep.
as adults or older than what they really are.
I was just telling someone earlier, little Black kids don't get to be
We don't
kids, really,
get to be
you
kids.
know, and
But my
especially
kid's gonna
like,
be a kid, and then you're gonna treat my kid like a kid, because I'm gonna advocate and make sure that she's treated as a
right.
kid when she's a kid, and as an adult when she's an adult.
Right, right. But even if when they introduce to certain stuff like that, it just breaks my heart, really.
Yeah.
I thank you so much for coming in and dropping a whole bunch of nuggets with us. I hope it really helps some people, like, and motivate some people to really get moving. we can complain all day, and it gets frustrating when we're not heard, but we have to get in their faces. We have to make them hear us. We can't just sit back and do nothing about it. We have to make some noise for such a silent disease. So
Yes, we do.
thank
We
you,
have
ma'am. I thank you so much. Will you be at the
to.
leadership summit?
Yes, I'll be on the leadership summit. Right after this, I'm drinking one of my favorite juices from our juicing workshops that we have. They'll start back this summer. And we are going to make them somewhat hybrid so we can send the juice recipes and a juicer to some of our warriors that aren't in Nevada. It's juicing.
Good. Awesome. I love it. Well, I cannot wait. And thank you again so much for
Thanks,
being
Mia.
on and talking and sharing so much wisdom with us. So
Of course, of
thank you
course.
guys for watching. Please inbox us if you have any questions. And yeah, that's a wrap. We'll see y'all
All right,
later.
in a minute, Mia.
Bye.